months of my life have been quite a learning curve. You know, being in law enforcement is a heck of a lot different than being in the legislature, especially coming from an executive leadership role. It's been a good 10 months though. I think we've hit the ground running. We've covered a lot of ground, and I think we've done a lot of good things in such a short period of time. I am much more of a bottom-up approach type of person. I don't believe in a top-down. I think that happens all too often in Albany, that bureaucrats sitting at the 30,000-foot level make decisions for all of us. They push them down without having any understanding of how things actually work in the real world. So whether it be dealing with the heroin and the opioid issue, we've taken a bottom-up approach. Dealing with the overall business climate in the state, we've taken a bottom-up approach by forming a small business advisory council where 14 different business owners are giving us suggestions, giving us ideas on how we can improve the business climate in the state of New York. It may seem a little unconventional. I said the other night, though, I'm okay with unconventional because that's just what I believe in. I think that's the way government should work. I think people should take more of a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down. So we've really been focusing my first 10 months on the heroin and the opioid issue. I'm pleased to say that we passed meaningful reforms because we worked in a bipartisan fashion, put our political differences aside, and made good decisions that affect the lives of everyday New Yorkers. We have to do a much better job, though, at the overall business climate. I said the other day when we were all together that while I am not opposed to the RADC process, the URI, I think the RADC does a good job identifying good projects in the southern tier. I'm pleased that the governor finally realized that the southern tier needs some help. And he came south of Syracuse and recognized that. You know, the RADC did good work. They put forth a very good proposal. That's why, that's why the southern tier won. I think that's great. However, I am a firm believer that unless we change the overall business climate of the state, those investments are not sustainable. And we need to do a much better job at empowering small businesses to thrive and prosper. I've often said that it's not government's responsibility to create jobs, and I firmly believe that. It's government's responsibility to get out of the way of business owners because they themselves know how to thrive and prosper. They can create jobs. Government shouldn't be setting a wage. If government was out of the way of business, businesses would be doing very well. They'd be paying their people good because they want to retain them, and we wouldn't have to have the discussion of minimum wage. But we find ourselves having to have those discussions because, in my humble opinion, we make poor economic development decisions thus far. So our focus moving forward will be to continue to work on the overall business climate of the state because clearly it needs to change. And again, I just want to repeat myself, if we don't change the overall climate, then those investments aren't sustainable. And my fear will be we will have invested millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars into these projects. And when that money is up, people are going to pull up stakes and they're going to leave. And they go 10 miles south of here where it's a heck of a lot easier to do business than it is in this state. I'm honored to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, gentleman and scholar. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dorollo Nixon, Jr. I'm an attorney here in Broome County. My wife and I live on the west side of the city of Binghamton. My law office is at Lockman and Gordon in Endicott, and we go to Calvary Baptist Tabernacle, which, if you like a good brisk walk, you can walk to from here. It's on Main Street in Vestal. So let me start by telling you why I am running. Because I've had friends who have asked me. They've said to me, Dorollo, you're such a nice guy. Why are you getting involved in politics? Dorollo, do you really want to go to Albany? But you see, the answer is a resounding yes. It's because I'm passionate about public service. I believe in giving back. It's how I was raised. My parents, who are career educators, they taught myself and my engineer little sister that you stand on the shoulders of giants. You must give back. You have to give back. So that's what I've been doing. I serve on several boards in the community, and I do disability work as an attorney. I help keep people out of the poorhouse who've been working and then fallen on hard times. And so when I look at our community and I look at what we're suffering, I can't stand on the sidelines any longer. I have to stand up and fight for us. Now for my campaign, we focus on 3 pillars: economic reform, ethics reform, and education reform. So I'm going to go through those briefly, and then I'm going to talk about a few other points. So first of all, the economy. To me, it's very straightforward what we're facing, the mountain that we're facing. During the last 12 years, we've lost thousands of jobs. The Binghamton job force has actually shrank by more than 8,000 from January of 2013 to now. We've also lost thousands of people to our county, and so I believe major changes are needed. And I'll get onto some of those changes in a second. Then ethics reform. I stand here before you for term limits for all non-judicial elected state officials. I believe that this will go 50% toward destroying the culture of corruption, which is ruining our state. And in case you're from somewhere else, let me talk to you briefly about the corruption in our state. So whether it's lying to the FBI, or the state chief executive sleeping with prostitutes, or let's see, what else is there? I mean, the list is long, right? So an assemblyman censured after sleeping at the home of a female intern after a night of heavy drinking. Next, senator from somewhere else in our state, convicted of siphoning hundreds of thousands of dollars from his nonprofit healthcare network. Next, senator, also from the state, pleaded guilty to using hundreds of thousands of dollars from nonprofit groups to pay for personal expenses. Do I really need to go on? Okay, well let me just give you one more, okay? This one stuck out to me for a reason that I think y'all will get as soon as you hear it. Pleaded guilty to racketeering charges in various criminal schemes, took money from taxpayers, labor organizations, contractors, and even a Little League program. Right, welcome to New York. Okay? So I stand for term limits. We have to deal with this culture of corruption because it's holding everything back. Speaking of, you may be aware there's an assembly pay raise that has been proposed by a commission conveniently set up by the legislature. And unless it's voted down on November 15th, which is conveniently after the election, the Assembly will receive a 47% approximately pay increase. So that's from $79,500 to $116,000 and change. I think that's unconscionable. There are hardworking families in our community who are struggling, and I think this is basically lining your pockets with taxpayer money. So I will refuse the raise, whether voted in or not, and donate the excess to charity, so long as normal hardworking people cannot get ahead in District 123. Next, education reform. So just briefly, I want you to raise your hand if you graduated high school without Common Core. Well, we turned out all right, didn't we?
Better than all right.
All right, so that means it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary, right? It's also untried and unpopular, so I say repeal it. I think as an alternative, we need to return local control to schools. You know what local control looks like? Everyone heard of, or anyone heard of Frank McCourt, the author of Angela's Ashes? Yeah. Public school educator from New York City? That's local control. How about Mrs. Colicchio? She was my AP American History teacher in 11th grade. I remember her. I remember her going over even one of my essays, and we're talking, this is more than 20 years ago. That's what local control looks like to me. I'm interested in hearing what local control looks like to y'all. Next, small businesses. They're getting hit from all sides, right? Everything is going up except your bottom line. So if elected, I'll fight for your bottom line. I support eliminating the business tax in New York to make New York competitive again for non-Wall Street type businesses. And non-Hollywood businesses. And you know, it's interesting because Senator Akshar voiced Governor Cuomo, so he actually agrees with my method, basically, right? Meeting Governor Cuomo. You heard that right. Because there's Hollywood tax credits that he was touting. It was in the paper last week, right? And the money that brings in. So I think he understands that by relieving the tax burden, you actually boost business in New York. So, and I'm running out of time, but SUNY. Tuition has increased more than 40% over the last 10 years. The rankings have basically stayed the same. I have the research with me if you want it, but you can look it up yourself if you want. 2007 ranked number 86, 2012 ranked 86, 2013 ranked 97, going into 2017 ranked 86. So if I were a student, I would want to know why the bill went up almost 50%. We have nothing to show for it. If I were a taxpayer, and I am, I want to know why the bill went up 50%. There's nothing to show for it. State spending, state budget, 1999. 72.7 billion. Population of New York, 18.7 million. State budget 2009, 131.8 billion. New York population, 19.4 million. So that's less than 1 million increase in people and almost doubling in terms of budget. Where's the money? Where's the money? Let's work on that. So I'm Dorollo Nixon. I'm running to help change the climate in Albany because we need that help here. Thank you.
Well, hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Really nice to be here with you again. I'd be happy to later answer specific questions that you might have about some of the issues that we've been working on at the Capitol. But let me just give you sort of some broad strokes and some broad information about the kinds of things that I do. Being in the State Assembly, this really has, I like to look at it as three large components. There's what happens in Albany, which happens between January and June. That's when we're in legislative session. We're in session for 6 months, and in Albany, I have the confidence of my colleagues to chair the Committee on Children and Families. I was elected by all of the women, both Republicans and Democrats, including my colleague over here, to chair the Legislative Women's Caucus, that's members of the Senate and the Assembly, and I also chair the Legislative Aviation Caucus. My dad was a World War II flight engineer in the Army Air Corps, so I grew up with all things aviation. I'm very committed to doing things not only with aviation, but I work on a lot of transportation issues. So in the Capitol, when we're in session, we're working on the budget, and it's always a challenge, I have to admit, because the majority of our colleagues are from the downstate area, and they are very vocal, and they have been very successful over the years making sure that their transportation systems have been looked after and their issues have been looked after. And we were successful this year in really drawing a line in terms of transportation parity and making sure that our issues, especially the opioid concern that Senator Akshar has been talking a lot about, were raised to an important component of our conversation. But we passed legislation at that point. I passed a bill to require all schools be tested for lead in drinking water for our children. I passed a law this year that would mandate, believe it or not, parking garages that you park in be inspected. Who knew that there are no regular safety inspections on parking garages until one collapsed, and we found this out. The newspaper did a very good investigation about that. So we pass legislation, we make sure we stand our ground on behalf of upstate, and we try to get a good budget, and we try to fight a lot of the forces that I think are some of the things that work against some of your concerns, which we'll hear about later. Back in the district, however, probably half of what we do has to do with constituent services. I mean, I worked all day today on a couple of cases with someone in my office about a child who tried to commit suicide and was unable to get mental health services. Another person, some of you might enjoy this particular story. You know, we've passed medical marijuana lately. A person at Willow Point Nursing Home has a prescription. They won't allow him to use it. I mean, just the range of things that we're dealing with on a daily basis require common sense, focus, and dedication. But we're also involved in local issues. We work with all of our local officials from every part of the county, state, local, federal, to make sure that your concerns are addressed. I have focused primarily on infrastructure, because if we don't have good roads and bridges, because we don't have good clean water, clean air, good sewer systems, we're not going to be able to attract business. I'm also very focused on building sectors of our economy that we really have not focused on in an organized manner. I'm equally as critical of some of what the regional councils have done in terms of providing resources to businesses without an adequate analysis of the return on investment. But one thing that our community has benefited from, and I think most of you can agree, we really did get paralyzed for many, many years, decades really, waiting for another big company to come to our rescue. We have benefited enormously by partnering with the other counties in our region to find out what do we do well here. And one of the things we do well is we do transportation-related industry. We do good microelectronics. We also do good agriculture and local foods. And I've been spending a lot of time trying to figure out ways of smartly finding out what we do well, what skills we have available to us, how we can be helpful in passing laws to make them successful, and understanding the challenges that upstate faces in a state that is dominated by downstate interests, and the degree to which we can become more business friendly, the degree to which we can foster entrepreneurship and innovation, I think will benefit our area. I see positive things happening all around us, and I'm very proud of my role in that, but I'm not naive to the challenges we face. I always cite this statistic: when 1 in 2 children in the city of Binghamton are living in poverty, 1 in 4 in the county of Broome, it makes us stop in our tracks and figure out what we're doing wrong, and what we can do right to to raise everyone up, as we're seeing some success from the university, from our medical community, and from other areas. But we've got a lot going for us. When people come here from out of town, they marvel at this place on 2 rivers, dedicated people, great ethnic diversity. It's a great place, and I'm sincerely grateful to represent all of you, those of you in the city of Binghamton, the towns of Vestal and Union, and I hope to have your support going forward. Happy to answer questions later. Thanks.
I grew up in a small town. I grew up in Smithville Flats, New York. Does anybody know where that is? Yep. Shocking. Shocking. I used to have to say green because nobody else would understand it. But in that small town, I was raised on small town values. My parents were both school teachers, and my dad was on this Board of Education. That was kind of like my first foray into politics, going to parades and at times him being accosted out in the parade route because he made a vote that people didn't like. And I went to church every week, and my parents instilled in me the sense that you need to give back to your community. You need to do everything you can to give back to your community. And I graduated from Broome Community College, went to Binghamton University, graduated from Binghamton University, met in high school, my high school sweetheart. I married Amanda, and we ended up buying a house on the north side of Binghamton. And I got a city councilman, how I got into politics, a city councilman was running for office, and he knocked on my door, and he started talking to me about local issues. Now, I had always followed national politics by trade. I have a degree in history, and I taught American history for over a decade, but never really had focused on local politics until the city councilman came up to my house and started talking to me about various issues in my neighborhood, and that's when I really got the political bug. And it was the political bug for local politics, for what's happening in our neighborhood and what's happening in our community. And got involved that way and decided to run for county legislature, and won a term and then won several terms after that. And one of the things on the county legislature I wanted to do was to try to make government more efficient. One of the things that I saw when we first got in there was that the county was spending a lot of money on wasting energy, so I brought together people from within the community to form what we call an energy advisory board and see if we could find more ways to make Broome County more energy efficient. I love green jobs and all that kind of stuff, but I'm much more interested in finding ways to make things more efficient so taxpayers are paying less money for that. And we met for 18 months. Nobody was paid. It was an all-volunteer group of people, and we put in energy efficient lights. We found grants for putting solar panels on top of the things. We got rid of space heaters, which pissed off a lot of county workers, but it was really good in the end. It was very efficient. And we ended up, we delivered over 20 initiatives, recommendations, and ended up saving taxpayers over $150,000 a year in reduced energy costs. I have always believed that at the local level, it's really not ideology. It's not political ideology. It's your ability to listen to people. It's your ability to work with other sides of the political aisle. And on my time on the county legislature, I worked with a lot of different groups of people, and I worked with people from across the aisle. And I was in the majority for the first 4 years, and sometimes irritated people when I was in the majority. And then when I was in the minority, sometimes I irritated some people who were in the minority. I remember being from a small town after the SAFE Act was passed. A number of counties in upstate New York, I don't think any downstate counties did, but a number of counties in upstate New York wrote resolutions, non-binding resolutions, to ask to repeal the SAFE Act. And I can tell you, I did annoy a number of my colleagues on the Democratic side when I voted in favor of repealing the SAFE Act, because I come from a small community. I come from Smithville Flats, New York, and pretty much, you know, I'm from Green, so the first day of hunting season, nobody goes to school, right? So I understand the importance of being able to own a gun and responsible gun ownership, and I thought that this act was a fairly ridiculous thing that was passed. And so that's another example of just me doing what I thought was the right thing and working across the political aisle. Now, I just got the 2-minute warning and I could talk all night. So I do want to talk about some things that are near and dear to my heart. I ran for county executive because I had left the legislature because I moved out of my district. I ran for county executive because I have 3 children, 9, 7, and, well, 9, 8, and 4 now. our 8-year-old just had a birthday on Saturday. And I kept tucking them in to bed and thinking, what kind of opportunities are they going to have? Are they going to have the same opportunities that my wife and I had 15 years ago when we had college, when we graduated from college? I got a job right off the bat. My wife got a job right off the bat. There's no way that the kids are getting these types of opportunities right here in Broome County today. We were looking at the unemployment numbers in Broome County, over 6,000 jobs lost in just the last 4 years since July. So my focus squarely is what can we do to help create an atmosphere here where we can bring jobs here, but also how do we help our existing companies that are right here. I can't tell you how many companies that I've talked to are frustrated with the regulations and the red tape. Whether it's a large company, whether it's a bar on Clinton Street, they're very irritated about the lack of communication with government. Two other things I'll talk about really quick. The heroin crisis is our #1 crisis in the community. It's our biggest health crisis in Broome County. It's something that we never faced before. Over 60 people have already died. We are now the most unsafe county in all of New York, and it's directly attributed to that. And if we're going to try to bring families here, we're going to try to bring jobs here, that has to be attacked squarely. And I have not seen a response that is an appropriate response for this crisis. If we had 60 people dying in a flood, you'd see a military-style type of response here, and we don't see it. Those are the reasons why I'm running for county executive. Thank you very much. My time is up.
I'm a little taller, actually. Just want to say thank you. Loud. I'm the only one running on a national level. Everybody's running for either a state or local office. Usually speak to you on both topics. 2 years ago, I spoke about running for Congress, and then last year we talked about being in the Assembly again. And one thing I thought I'd talk about, because it's the #1 question asked of me, and because you're seeing just a little bit about the race. And you know me, I've spoken before this group before, but you're seeing a number of ads on TV. There's going to be about $4 to $6 million in advertising spent in this race, mostly negative ads against me, and actually they're pretty much the same ads that were run during the primary season and last year and 2 years ago. And the #1 question that's asked to me is, how come you miss so many votes, and why don't you show up for work? And how come you make $400,000 a year in the state assembly? In case you guys didn't know, I make $400,000 a year. Just so you know. I've heard that a lot. So let's talk a little bit about the truth. And so I was elected in the state assembly, and I ran for office in 2010, and I took office in 2011. I've been there for 6 years. The pay is $79,500. If you're on a committee and you happen to be a Republican, you get what they call a stipend, which is usually what's $9,000 is what I get, but I don't know what other people receive. It depends on what committee you're on or if you're even on the committee. We get reimbursed for traveling from Albany to and from our home 1 time per week during a session week. So I have a full-time job as a member of our family business. I also am a practicing lawyer. In 2010, or 2011, when I first took my first district, it was 18 towns in Oneida and 9 in Oswego. From one end of the district to the other, it was about an hour and a half. Redistricting came in 2012, and I was given the longest district created in the history of New York by about 100 miles. I mean, it's like a Senate district. So all that driving that I do, the 1,000 miles a week and all through my district, I don't get reimbursed for that. I don't get paid for it. But it takes me away from my business and my family and my home. And this is theoretically a part-time job, as Donna indicated, January through June, and then the rest of the time you do constituent service. So my first year in the Assembly, I never missed a minute of session or a single vote. And I never intended to ever miss a vote because my mentor in the Assembly is sitting in the back there, Dave Townsend, who I think never missed any votes except he missed a couple at one point. And as Don indicated, you know, we vote, just a little bit of perspective, about 12,000 bills are introduced in every Assembly term. And in an annual basis, we look at anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 bills actually come to the floor that are discharged from committee. Another factoid that many don't realize is that the Assembly is currently 107 to 42. Technically, would be 43, but we had a recent death from a member on our side. The Republicans are in the minority. I'm in the minority. And since 1974, there has not been a single statewide bill passed the New York State Assembly without a co-sponsorship from the Democrats. Unless you're putting in a sales tax extender and a tax bill or a local bill, You really can't get a bill passed in the state assembly unless you're a Democrat. So those are some facts. So never missed a vote my first year, second year, third year. My son graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy. I raised him as a single mother. There's no way that I'm going to vote on a bill that's going to pass 150 or 149 to 0 to miss my son's graduation after raising him. What we are permitted to do when you've been excused from the assembly is to vote by a paper ballot, and that's what I did, and that's what every member does. I don't know if Donna's ever missed a vote. I strive to make sure I work really hard to read the bills. I'm one of the very few members that actually reads the bills, and I don't come out of assembly session and go out to bar scene. I go to my hotel room, or I go to Andy Goodell's office usually, with some of my colleagues, and think of legislation that we can do. So the next year in 2014, so that was only just a couple of days, there's a few votes. And by the way, from January to June, most of the bills we do are actually passed in June. They tend to be one-house bills. They tend to be local bills, meaning they're bills that are naming a highway or allowing a local community to use a lever voting machine in a local election, for example. They're not substantive bills. We do including budget bills, I think we do about 40 to 50 substantive bills in the Assembly. They do many less bills in the state Senate. I have to say they're more efficient, not because they're Republicans, but they're just more efficient. And we have so many more members, and everybody's got a personal bill they'd like to put out. I also live across the street from my parents' house, the house I grew up with. I've lived there for 27 years. My mother lived there for 52. My father died before my mother. I'm the primary caretaker for my parents. My mother became very ill in 2013, and I was racing up and down the thruway to try to be there at her side when she was ill. I was there for her. I missed I missed a few votes, but I missed a lot of time with my family because of the nature of my district being so long. Just think about this. It's 3.5 hours from one end of my district to the other. So if I want to attend a fire department dinner or honor somebody in my district who's a constituent, that's a 9-hour day. That's 9 hours, 3.5 hours in the car, go to the event and come home. So usually I don't get home till 11 or 12 at night driving up and down the thruway. So last year my mother passed away. They were picking on me in 2014 saying I was missing votes because I missed some partial days. By the way, I have a 96% attendance record in the Assembly. It's not like I'm never showing up like the commercial claims. I'm there a lot, and Donna can testify. She knows I'm there all the time. In fact, I know a lot of Democratic members and some of my colleagues. I'll look at them and say, your bill's on the floor. Where are you? And they're like, I'm home. So because they've been excused for one reason or another, probably constituent service or something like that, they are able to vote by paper ballot. Just want to let you know, I am very committed to the job. I work really hard at constituent service. I spend a lot of my own money. All that time driving up and down the thruway going to my long district is all paid for out of my pocket. I wear and tear on my cars, 40 to 50,000 miles a year, plus the gas. So it's a real travesty that they're trying to distort my very good record, my strong record against corruption in Albany in this way. And unfortunately, because of the news media, a lot of people don't understand how things work in Albany or in Washington. And I'm trying to make that understood by everyone. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.